Hello, ladies. Looks like I may be having some struggles with the live stream. Anyone who is here, please holler at me and let me know if you can hear me. It's telling me tech things that I don't understand. Oh, good. Okay, I see some ladies on. Hello, hello, hello. Awesome. Now I'm seeing my comments. Happy 4th weekend, guys. All right, good. Okay, so let me know. Drop something. Okay, good. Thank you, Karen. Yes, if anything, if I cut out or if anything's looking weird, let me know. It keeps popping up these little notifications with language I do not know. So we're just going to move forward and I'm going to operate as if everything is working. Cool. How are you ladies doing so far on this Saturday morning or early morning or afternoon, wherever you may be in the world? I know I've got some West Coasters and some East Coasters on here so far. So let me know in the comments, do you all have events you're going to this weekend for the holiday? Are you going to be hanging out with friends, family, doing activities, going somewhere where there will be food around, and particularly, there we go, there's me, I'm trying to center myself here. Particularly any foods that you know are typically temptations for you. Ooh, it's 8 a.m. where Karen is, West Coast. Thank you for being up early on a Saturday morning and joining us. Glad to have you here. Yeah, so are y'all gonna have temptations anywhere you're going this weekend? And if not this weekend, then let me know what was the most recent event you went to where you had a temptation. And tell me about that temptation. What was it? What did you give in? Did you resist? If you gave in, what happened? Why did you give in? If you resisted, then what would you attribute your success to? And I'm just going to dive into the content. And if y'all have any questions, thank you, Erica. I just turned my volume up. Hopefully that helped. Let me know if you can hear me better now. It's kind of weird the way it does this. I can see the comments, but I have to scroll down. So I'll just scroll around the screen and we'll see. It wants me to close everything else, but I've got notes, so I'm not going to close everything. Sadie, I love it. Hey, y'all, working out and eat, hustling. No temptations for me. I make my own food. It's not worth being sick for the day. I love it. That is what I call knowing yourself, knowing your body, knowing how things impact you, and recognizing that it's not worth it to you. That's actually my first point. All right, I'm also going to try to make sure I speak loud enough because as y'all know who follow me or have seen me on video before, I have a raspy voice and sometimes I know it gets drowned out. Sipping my keto coffee here. All right, so let's just dive into the topic at hand here. This was a popular topic in the group when I was asking, or when we were talking about temptations, or when we were talking about cravings, rather. And the ladies were saying, okay, I want something about how to deal with temptations. And when I asked for more details, the details I got were when I'm out and about, when I'm, dining out, events, going places where there's temptations. So I said, okay, let's do a separate chat all about that. And since it is a holiday weekend and there are likely to be lots of social events this weekend, opportunities to be out with other people who may not follow the same way of eating, this might be a good extra bonus live for anyone who might be struggling this weekend. So I will leave this up so everyone can see after the fact if they can't join us live. And hopefully it'll help on everyone's holiday plans. Yay, Karen, starting your workout, woohoo! You are next up on my agenda today. I'm going to be jumping into your check-in, checking out your notes for the week and seeing how things are going. So I will be in touch when we get off of this live. So have a great workout. Can't wait to hear how that went. Mashita just traveled for 10 days. Although I'm not 100% carnivore, I did well. Awesome. Did you have any particular temptations? Any particular situations that potentially could have tripped you up or did trip you up that you would love some insights into how to do better next time? I'd be happy to help you. Coffee temptations. Ooh, great question, Karen. How do you order your coffee at a coffee house? I'll answer that question before we even get into the rest of it because it's a super simple answer. I get the same thing every time and I absolutely love it. Starbucks. I became a Starbucks girl. Never was, but Starbucks Cafe Americano. Plain black, nothing in it. I don't do dairy, so heavy whipping cream is never an option for me when I go for coffee. And I can tell you 99.9% of all coffee houses out there, if they have a non-dairy creamer or milk, it is going to have a lot of sugar in it or carbs. Typically, what's interesting about the coffee houses is the coconut milk, which would be my first choice as a non-dairy creamer. I just don't like almond milk. It's not worth it to me. The coconut milk and also a lot of times all of the almond milks are going to have a lot of sugar added. Probably because especially the almond milk just has a really weird flavor and it's not going to be as good without the sweetener. And they usually always use like a sugar. It's not an alternative sweetener. So I never go for those. Usually what's interesting is the non-dairy creamer or milks that have the least amount of sugar actually still have a good bit of carbs, and that's because it's the oat milk. For whatever reason, they don't seem to add sugar to the oat milk as much as they do the coconut and the almond, but it has more carbs because it's made out of oats. So I always do Cafe Americano. I see a lot of fans of the Cafe Americanos in here. Erica, Tina, yes. And yes, Tina says they usually have stevia packets. And depending on the coffee house, they will have different types of stevia packets. Some of them don't have any at all, and they still, unfortunately, are old school, and they have like the Equal and the Splenda, which I highly recommend not going for Equal, Splenda, any of those other alternative sweeteners. They usually are using dextrose, maltodextrin, or things that not only can cause major cravings, can cause blood sugar spikes, depending, you can always check for yourself, but to be perfectly frank, I just don't think it's ever worth it to use those alternative sweeteners. There's just way too many other ways that they impact you beyond just blood sugar and insulin. So I sometimes will do a stevia packet, but a lot of the time the stevia packets are made with erythritol or dextrose. You actually have to read the ingredients. They have it on there and I'll tell you what's in there. But if it's a granulated sweetener, it's almost always going to be made with erythritol or mixed with erythritol and or dextrose or something else. So I prefer, if I'm going to put a sweetener, which usually I do not put sweeteners in my coffee, and I highly recommend not using sweeteners in your coffee for a period of time to desensitize your taste buds to it, and you will not need it anymore. It sounds very daunting to those who have always used sweeteners, but you won't need it anymore, and then you'll be amazed at what you can get away with. When I did my first Whole30 before I ever did keto in 2013, I was traveling in New Orleans. Of all places, New Orleans is not the place where the chef will change anything on a meal for you. So it was really challenging. I was literally like scooping sauces off of my fish. But I went to Cafe du Monde. And if you all know of Cafe du Monde, they have the most amazing, really amazing coffee, but also they have beignets. I did not have a beignet. I got black coffee for the first time in my life. When I first went paleo and then went into Whole30, I actually gave up coffee because I couldn't have it without creamer and sweetener. I just did not enjoy it at all without way too much creamer and way too much sweetener. So I went to Cafe du Monde and got an iced coffee, black, and it was amazing. And it was the first time I was ever able to have coffee black. And for a long time after that, I drank my coffee black. Nowadays, I have different hacks. For sweeteners, if I'm ever going to use them, I only ever use, and this is not just for my coffee, I actually don't use it in my coffee, but if I'm ever going to use it for anything, just the pure liquid monk fruit or stevia. Just the liquid extract. Doesn't have any granulated sweeteners added to it. That works well for me. And for those who do not like the taste, I promise you, it wouldn't take long for your taste buds to change, to get yourself used to that. So yes, Mashita carries liquid stevia drops in her purse, exactly. And that's what I recommend, is the pure liquid. And they're usually small enough, or you could buy them small enough that you could travel with them too, so you can bring them with you anywhere. I also carry Redmond's Real Salt, the little guys, in my purse. And I carry chocolate LMNT electrolytes, which I like to put in my coffee when I'm traveling. Sometimes I do that at home too. And, oh, my other little thing, because I make my keto coffee with MCT oil when I'm at home, just a teaspoon. I don't use a lot because it is a lot of calories, liquid calories, which takes away how much food I get to eat in a day. So I just do a teaspoon of MCT oil, and I do, I put my powder supplements in there, sometimes collagen, creatine and glutamine, and salt, Redmond's Real Salt or LMNT. But also, I like to do different flavored collagen powders. These are usually the ones I check. I always check that it's only made with stevia or monk fruit. But right now, my favorite is, I just got Primal Kitchen Collagen Fuel. They were doing a BOGO, so it's been a while since I've gotten that. They use, he also has a little bit of fiber in there, so sometimes I try to really avoid like the acacia fiber or the gums or the stabilizers, but it does have some, I think, acacia fiber in there, and it has coconut milk powder, which, you know, for my true carnivores out there, may not want to do. So, but there are collagen powders that just have flavoring and just are sweetened with stevia, or some of them don't even have the stevia. It's just the flavoring. So I do like a vanilla collagen powder in my coffee, and you can travel with that. You can put it in a baggie. You can put it in little Tupperwares. I usually will travel with those. All right, let's go through these comments. We've got some great comments going on. And I'm loving this format. Maybe I'll do all my lives like this, because the Zooms have been a little less engaging. So this is fun to see all these comments. Okay, what else about coffee? Yeah, the Americano, I have to say, it's something about the espresso. I really enjoy a cafe Americano. I don't have to put anything in it. Whereas if I'm doing drip coffee, it's a little harder to take. Also, here's another little trick for coffee orders. The cold brew, since we're in the middle of the summer and it's really hot right now, the nitro cold brew at Starbucks, it tastes like it has creamer in it. It's so good, and it doesn't have anything in it. Any cold brew is going to be a little smoother than the acidity of regular drip coffee. Espresso is going to be a lot better than regular drip coffee. And the nitro cold brew especially is like, it takes all that acidity out. It's so much smoother and easier to drink without adding anything. Yep, and I did talk about how I make my coffee at home. Yep, I blend it all in the blender so it has this big froth at the top of it every day. And that's just with my collagen, my powder supplements, and my MCT oil. All these vacations, great. We can talk about travel for sure. Leaving on vacation. Oh, Sadie has nut pods. Yes. So another one of my favorite non-dairy creamers is the nut pods. They're pretty expensive, so I don't buy them all the time, but when I can get a good deal on them, I'll get them, or every once in a while when I have a hankering. And I like the unsweetened ones. They're really good. The flavors are really good without any sweeteners. Some of them are even sweeter than the ones that do have sweeteners in them. So I do prefer the unsweetened flavored ones. Trader Joe's heavy cream. Yeah, for those of you who are good with dairy and who are not experiencing a stall with your fat loss, you can do the heavy cream. If you're experiencing stalls with your fat loss, I always recommend the first thing to be taking out the dairy. One of the first things, depending on what else you might have going on. Coconut milk, coconut oil, yes, great. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Sadie. I used to buy the little mini coconut oil packets at Trader Joe's and bring them with me on my travels, and I could use those. But for coffee, it's unless you have something to froth, like if you have a frother, a handheld frother or something, or you can use blender bottles, shaker bottles like this, protein shaker bottles that I will bring. I always bring one of these or two of these on my travels with the little, blender bottle things. So I can shake up my coffee when I want to make it when I'm on the road. You have to be careful though, it can explode because of the heat. So you always want to shake it away from you. Don't shake it for too long, but you can shake your stuff up and still get some froth when you're traveling. Yep, got some great different recipes for how people make their coffee. Feel free to drop how you make your coffee. So much. This is great. Okay, I'm so excited. I'm loving this. I literally travel with the same things you do. Say woohoo. Element goes in everything. Yep. Any hot area. With KetoCon coming up, the travel food will be a challenge. Ooh, yes, Tina, let's talk about that for sure. Mishita puts an egg, collagen powder, and butter, preferably goat butter. Ooh, I've never tried that. Maybe my next attempt with dairy, I'll try goat butter. That sounds like it would be amazing. I used to love goat milk on a previous gut healing journey. And I have tried the egg yolk in my coffee. Really liked it the very first time I tried it, and like the second and third time it just tasted so eggy, and I think I got some egg white in there. If you do the whole egg, more power to you. I realize it just tastes eggy to me, and I can't deal. But the yolk, if I can get all of the white out, is not bad. All right, so let's get into some other things. That was a great chat about coffee. I love that. All right, let's get into some of the meat here. And as we go, we'll talk about some tips and tricks. And this will be not only for, social dining, but travel as well. All right, so the number one, the biggest thing, as I talked about in the Cravings Masterclass, there are kind of two sides to the coin here. There is all of the practical things you can do, tips and tricks to work with your physiology, to avoid temptation, or to manage yourself well in the midst of temptation. But the biggest thing that's going to move the needle for the longer term, short term and long term, is the mindset piece. So let's focus on that first. First and foremost, I have three main tips that I'm going to share today. One, getting your mind right. Two, prepping and planning ahead to set yourself up for success. And three, people management. How to handle food pushers like a boss. So let's get into it. First and foremost, getting your mind right. Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to temptations, you are the only one that can determine what is a temptation and what is not a temptation. Hopefully I'm coming through okay. Keep letting me know. Good, okay, I'm back. All right, so, all right, how can you get your mind right around food so that temptations don't feel so much like temptations anymore? This is going to be the biggest takeaway here. First and foremost, wherever you're going, stop fixating on the food. If your first thought when you're going to an event, when you're traveling, is, oh my God, how am I going to do this and stay on my diet? I don't know what I'm going to do. There's going to be so much temptation. There's going to be food everywhere. I don't know how I'm going to have any choices. I don't think I can do this. I'm traveling, so that means I might as well throw my diet in the trash. This is where a lot of people go wrong before you even get started. It's all up here. So the fixation on the food, this is something you can work on day to day, in your day-to-day life, before you even think about traveling or going to a social event. Is your mind always on food? Is your mind always on, what's my next meal going to be? What are my macros today? How am I going to hit my macros today? I don't know, when I go to the grocery store, if I'm going to be able to get out of there without buying the thing that I'm tempted to eat. Thinking about food all day long. This is where we have to start, is we have a whole life. We have a whole life full of so many things that don't involve food. Food, yes, has meaning. It only has the meaning that we place on it, just like anything else in life. Everything in life only has a meaning that we assign to it. If we don't assign a meaning to it, it has no meaning. And it has the meaning that we decide that it has. So first and foremost, check your thoughts, check your mind, check yourself, and say, what value am I placing on these temptations? What is the value of this thing, right? So, and then you can start to compare it and start to ask yourself, what does this food do for me? Or what does this food do to me? So who said, I think it was Sadie early on, it's not worth it. I don't want to be sick all day. So checking yourself and asking yourself, okay, if there's a food or a food-like item, which is a much more apropos, much better way of saying it, because a lot of the things that tempt us are not food. It is frankenfood, it is food-like substances, it is manufactured garbage, for lack of a better word. It's garbage, and your body's not a trash can. So when you imagine, when you consider what that food, what value you're placing on that food, ask yourself, do some journaling. What value does an Oreo? I'm using Oreo. I mean, probably for many of us in this group, Oreos are not the temptation. Hopefully they've been out of your life for quite some time, as they have in mine. But it's such a great example of a standard American diet garbage food-like substance. What value does an Oreo have? What is it doing for your body? Is it doing anything for your body? To be quite frank, it's not. And if you think that any of these highly palatable, packaged, processed, high sugar, sugar substitute, keto-fied versions of junk that are still junk with a keto label on it have the value of, what I hear a lot in the everything in moderation groups is, oh, everything in moderation because it's doing something for you psychologically. So if it's doing something for you psychologically or emotionally, that counts too. What? Okay, first of all, if you think that these foods are doing something for you psychologically or emotionally, you're wrong. All they're doing for you psychologically or emotionally is hijacking you. They're giving you a high like a drug in that moment. Would you say that crack cocaine does something for you, or is it doing something to you? Start to ask yourself that and compare what those foods are doing for you or to you compared to what a steak, eggs, bacon, lamb for me, what these nutrient-dense foods are doing for you. Still tastes great, still satisfying and satiating, much more satiating than a hyperpalatable processed packaged piece of crap. Endorphins, we can get endorphins from anywhere. It doesn't have to be from our food. So topic for another day to go deeper into, but there are ways we can get that high that we're seeking from the food from other things that are more beneficial and actually doing something for us. So first things first, you gotta check yourself, why is this tempting to me? Does it have to be tempting to me? Can I reframe that? Because as long as I say it's tempting, it's going to be tempting. It's going to be a temptation as long as I assign it that value and that meaning. So that's number one. Shifting your focus away from the food or food-like substances and onto the other things. When you're traveling, when you're social, when you're going to events, what else is that event going to hold for you that's meaningful, that's not food? Who's going to be there? Loved ones, family, friends, possible new friends, going to a place where you can network and meet new people, right? If you're traveling for conferences like KetoCon next week, all kinds of new learning opportunities will be in front of you. Opportunities to expand your knowledge and your skills. Opportunities to experience a new place. When we're traveling, I love just wandering around new cities, experiencing things. What is there for me to see here? Going sightseeing, doing activities outside. What else holds value at these events? Focus on those things, shift the focus away from the food. The next tip in getting your mind right is knowing your why, okay? The ketogenic diet, the low-carb diet, the carnivore diet is a very specific, very niche. Even in today's world, it may seem like it's becoming mainstream. It's still not mainstream. It's very niche. So here's the thing, or here's the question. Why did you choose this diet? There are a million different diets you can do to lose weight. So if you chose keto, low carb, carnivore for a weight loss journey or a fitness journey, a body transformation journey, which many of you are here for that reason, why did you choose it? Actually, drop it in the comments. Comments have stopped, so I'm not sure if I have frozen for you all. So drop it in the comments. Why did you choose keto? Why did you choose low carb or carnivore? What was it for you? Knowing your why and keeping that in front of you at all times is key to avoiding temptation. Because if you're constantly back and forth about this diet, you haven't made the decision that you're all in. So you've got to know why. Why keto? Nobody held a gun to your head and said, you have to do keto. This is your only option. If you don't do this, you're not going to have any success. You can have success on any diet. So why? Why did you choose this? It's your choice. At the end of the day, sometimes we forget that we chose this. That this is not like something forced upon us. So the attitude, and I'm going to get back to that when we talk about people, but your own attitude about your diet, how you're seeing it, what you're thinking about your own diet is going to be the biggest impact on whether you have success or failure. Tina chose it for neurological reasons. Yep. Kelly's son, neuro issues. Mental clarity, yep. To heal my body and reverse health issues, Mashida, yep. Yeah. So I would go on a limb and say most of us that chose keto didn't choose it just for the fat loss. Fat loss was a happy side effect. That's what I called it when I went paleo. It was a happy side effect. It was all about my health. So if we've lost touch with that, then everything becomes a negotiable, and it's, well, I can have some of that. Well, But if we remember that this is deeper than just fat loss for us, that is going to keep us from putting our hand in the candy jar. So along those same lines, the next question to ask yourself is, have you really committed to this lifestyle? As long as an off-plan food is a negotiable in your mind, it will always tempt you. And you will always be finding yourself out in tempting situations, making a decision. One foot in, one foot out. I don't know if I should eat this or not. You haven't made the decision. You haven't made the decision. For those who are married, when you got married, were you able to keep side pieces around, ex-boyfriends around? I mean, if you did, then no comment, not going to go there, not judging your morality. That's on you. But when you chose marriage, everything else had to stop. You couldn't keep the boyfriends and get married and say, I'm going to be committed to my husband for the rest of my life. That was a lifelong decision you made. Do you have to decide every day now whether or not you're going to cheat on your spouse? Or did you make that decision when you made those vows and decided then that cheating is not an option? If you haven't made the decision that this is your lifestyle and that XYZ is in your lifestyle and XYZ is not, then you still have negotiables happening. It has to be a non-negotiable. When I go to certain places and I'm confronted with certain foods that I don't eat, I don't look in their direction, it's not a consideration, it is a non-negotiable. Gluten, dairy, sugar are non-negotiables in my life. I've decided, I've placed them in a place, they don't belong in my life. It doesn't have to be a decision every time. You make a decision one time, then you're making choices that align with that decision. Decisions are not made every day. You make one decision one time. You say, this is my decision, and then your choices every day either align with that decision or they don't. And if you're living outside of alignment, you're living outside of integrity. So it's connected to who you are as a person. Am I going to act with integrity today, or am I not? Do you go to the grocery store every day, or whatever you go to the grocery store and decide whether or not you're going to steal the groceries or pay for them? Probably not. Hopefully not. You've decided you're a moral person who doesn't steal. One time you decided that, probably very unconsciously. So when you go to the grocery store, stealing versus paying for your groceries is not even an option. And it's not a temptation. You get to decide whether it's a temptation. So the final piece on the get your mind right stuff. Explore the attachment that you have to certain trigger foods. If there are certain foods that you still struggle to stay away from on this lifestyle, do a little exploring, do a little journaling. Why does this food hold such value to me? And how can I begin to shift that value? And exploring how it makes your body feel is a really great way to start that. As Sadie said, she doesn't want to be sick all day, right? Dairy became a non-negotiable first in my life because I suspected that it was bothering me, and when I took it out, I felt a million times better, and then why would I go back? Why would I go back? Why would I want to make myself feel that way on a regular basis? It's not worth it. All right, any questions or thoughts on the temptation, on the mental side of things before we move on to some practical steps? I'm gonna read through these comments. More about the whys. I love hearing the whys. Okay, let's see. Sadie, I accidentally chose it. I was jumping all over the place trying to lose weight since menopause and realized how to do my macros, and all heck broke loose, and my body loved this way of living. My depression went away, and I lost weight. I will never go back. Boom. This is what I mean when I say those hyper-palatable processed packaged foods, they hijack your brain. I'm telling you, because I've come from the other side of depression as well. Night and day taking that stuff out. Within 48 hours, taking it out. Total shift mentally. So yeah, when we say that those things are doing something for us emotionally, they're not. That's a lie. That is a marketing hype. Karen, Keto Brick chose because it makes sense. It is nutrient dense with multiple benefits. Jennifer, first I discovered it worked. I was pre-diabetic, obese, imprisoned in chronic pain. I wanted to be free of it and live my best life for myself and my family. It was the first sustainable thing I found that I could do forever. Okay, that is right there, flying in the face of the myth that keto is not sustainable. The only reason that keto is not sustainable for some people is because they are attached to this societal praise of sugar and carbs. We've been conditioned to believe that way, and if we learned it, we can unlearn it. Mashida, my friends that know no longer ask me to go out to eat. So I love that. I'm going to get back to that when we talk about the people piece, because that's a huge piece right there. You've trained them how to treat you. So we're going to talk about that in more detail. And Sadie said the marriage thing is a great example. I've been married 25 years, with him 30, and it takes work no matter what. Yep. Takes work. It's not always going to be easy. I love the analogy of relationships and marriage because it's such a great parallel to choosing this lifestyle. It's a lifelong journey. It's not always going to be easy, but the commitment that we made, once we've truly made that commitment, we may go through lows, but we are committed to making it work no matter what. We know that this is better for us than the alternative. And we always come back to it. Beautiful. Karen, move away from the Frankenfood, eating the way our bodies were intended to eat, taking away the power of where the government is directing. Oh boy, amen. Which leads you to poor health, dependent on doctors and big farm. Yep, there's no mistake that over the last 30, 40 years, we've gotten sicker ever since we've had the food guide pyramid scheme, which I call it. Sadie's having a battle with dairy. Tell me more about your battle with dairy. What do you struggle with? We can talk about that. As we get into the practical tips for planning and preparing to set yourself up for success, particularly physiologically. So as you're going to events or traveling, first and foremost, number one tip is to always know or ask what will be on the menu. If you're going to okay, here's kind of the bigger piece. The bigger piece that I always encourage is this idea that we won't have anything that we can eat at an event or at a dinner, at a restaurant, whatever. In over 10 years of living this lifestyle, I have never been anywhere, ever, that didn't have something I could eat. So this is a mental game, guys. If you're thinking, I can't be social, I can't go out to eat. If your friends think you can't go out to eat with them, a lot of the time people think that. When you're on a diet, period, I mean, all of my preps, people are like, oh, I can't wait until you're done so you can come out to eat. And like, I can come out now. There's no reason why I can't come out when I'm on a prep. Okay, I'm going to get into the training other people in a minute, but more about let's train our own minds. We have to train ourselves to believe I am capable of living this lifestyle no matter where I am, no matter what's available to me. I can always make this work. And here's the first piece of that. We know that on keto, we've set ourselves up like our ancestors did. We can go a whole day without eating and we'll be fine. This way of living manages our blood sugar in a way that we don't have to eat every 2 to 3 hours like our high-carb counterparts do. To manage their blood sugar, they must eat multiple small meals a day to keep their blood sugar, they say stable, but that's not accurate. It's actually doing this all day long. We are keeping ours more stable, may have a tiny bump after our meals of protein and fat, but nothing like when we're eating carbs. So, worst case scenario, wherever we are, we can just choose to not eat and we will be fine. And that is something we have to condition our minds to remember. Because yes, you'll get hungry. Sometimes you'll just get sympathy hungry because you're watching other people eat. It's probably not real. We'll get into hydration in a minute. But first and foremost, we never have to eat. So let's just get out of this mindset of, I don't know how I'm going to do this, or I don't think I can do this because. One thing I challenge my clients to always think about is shifting the I can't because statements, which are going to come up all the time, especially when you're trying something new, to how can I? I can't because ... to how can I? Ask the question, your brain has to answer the question. So if you're looking for solutions, your brain will find solutions, as opposed to pity party. So first and foremost, it's not a pity party, it's not woe is me, it's not poor me, I'm on this diet and I'm restricted and I'm not going to have any options. I always have an option. I can always choose not to eat. Okay. So secondly, with preparing to set yourself up for success, okay, figuring out what's going to be on the menu is big. Every time all these years, I don't know that I've ever gone to a restaurant without looking it up first. If there's a time where I'm out somewhere, I'm on vacation with my family, we haven't decided in advance where we're going, because that does happen from time to time, I'm not worried about it. Why? Because every single restaurant on the planet, unless you're going to a vegan restaurant, which I don't know why probably anybody who's on a keto or an animal-based keto or carnivore would ever go to a vegan restaurant unless you have a family member who's vegan and you want to just be their buddy and go with them. But for the most part, I haven't been inside a vegan establishment in many, many years. So most restaurants, all restaurants, are built around entrees that are built around a meat source and animal-based protein of some kind, usually with a veggie side and then usually with a starch side. You can just ask for no starch side. And guess what else? If they bring it with the starch side anyway, which has happened to me many times, you just don't eat it, move it off the plate, ask them to take it back. There's many, many options. Once again, you are in the driver's seat. You're determining what happens here. So if you go to a restaurant and say, I had no choice but to eat the potatoes that were served on the side, of course you had a choice. Of course you had a choice. You did not have to do anything. You chose to do it. Once again, I just always am going to go back to the mindset piece, because when we recognize that everything in our life is a choice and we stop placing the blame on something else, then we can take responsibility and start to make a different choice. We are not victims. You're not a victim. You are in the driver's seat. Okay, so check the menu in advance. If you're going to a family or friend's function, ask them what will be served. If you don't ask, you're setting yourself up for failure. So why would you not ask? If ever you have the opportunity to ask, ask. Now you know what's going to be available to you. Along with the asking, never, ever, ever make assumptions. And this is at restaurants or at parties. Never make assumptions before you go that the things served, particularly at a party. If your friend says, oh, we're going to have chicken and we're going to have this and we're going to have that, we're going to have burgers and we're going to have whatever, don't assume that the burgers are only going to be meat without breading in them, or that the chicken is going to be grilled, or that things are not going to have sauces on them. Ask more details. If you don't ask, once again, you're planning to fail. So it's not offensive to ask those questions. You deserve to know what's going to be in your food. If you don't want to ask, then you're already relegating yourself to not having options. You made that choice. You've decided that, woe is me, I'm not going to have any options because I didn't decide to ask. So put yourself in the driver's seat, ask the questions, find out what will be available to you. Once you find that out, you can start to make a plan. If you know for sure that something available there is going to be, let's say pure meat, pure protein without added junk that you can't eat, now you have some options. Now you can say, okay, I can have a burger, I can have a hot dog, I can have ribs. I know how that's going to impact my macros. If everything served is going to be really fatty and you have a lower fat macro right now, you might need to plan around that. If you want to have some of the fattier meats, bring your scale if you're not afraid to be that person. And a huge part of this lifestyle is deciding it's okay to be that person. That it's okay for you to do what you need to do to be successful with your goals. And that it doesn't matter what other people think. I have brought my scale to many a family function. I've brought my scale to restaurants. I brought my scale on the cruise. Because when I have goals and I am in a position where I have to dial everything in to hit those goals, i.e. prep, for many of you on a fat loss journey, that's what it's going to take to get to the next level, especially when you've been in a stall. And for those of you on a building journey, you need to make sure you're getting enough protein. How are you going to do that if you have to estimate everything? So part of it is conditioning your mind that I don't care what other people think if I bring my scale. This is what matters to me. This is what I need to do to be successful, period. I'm going to ask the server at the restaurant to check with the chef and tell me how many ounces this burger is. Tell me what percentage fat it is. Owning your journey. You are the CEO. Okay, so the next practical thing is, let's say, you've done all that, you still don't have any options, which I highly doubt. Highly, highly doubt. By now you probably have some options. But let's say you just don't. You can bring your own food. You can bring your own food entirely. You can bring a whole meal for yourself, or you can bring something for everyone that you know you can eat. You're going to eat from that. You know how much you're going to eat from that, and you'll let everybody else have some too, and then yay, you're contributing. That's amazing. I have many, many friends in the keto space that have brought purse meat or purse chicken with them to restaurants, to family functions. They bring their portion, they put it in a baggie, and they put it in their purse. You always can bring your own food. And whether that's an entire entree or something, I always like to say have alternatives with you. So don't ever allow yourself to be caught off guard without some sort of option. So meat sticks are one of my favorites because they're non-perishable and they travel well. Epic bars, chopsticks, any of the other brands that don't have junk in them, read the ingredients. But I always keep biltong or meat bars of some sort on me when I'm traveling. I used to keep things in my car. In the summer, I don't do that as much. I just make sure it's on me in my gym bag or in my purse. Pork rinds travel really well, or pork cracklings if you can have the extra fat, which are my favorite. I used to bring, when I was more keto and less carnivore, avocado and hard-boiled eggs would be like my snack on when I go to the airport. You can bring solid food through TSA, so you can always bring, let's talk a little bit about what you can bring for travel, since we have a lot of people traveling coming up. When I was traveling longer distances, flights, and I was on prep, and I'll never forget traveling 2 weeks out to my first competition ever. I did a bunch of chicken grilled in advance. I froze it. I put it in my checked bag. By the time it thawed, I got there, got to the hotel. I even had a delay because the rooms weren't ready and I was a little worried, but it turned out great. So you can freeze foods that freeze well. You can freeze them in advance, pack them in your checked bag, or your carry-on, either one. And then I brought a bunch of hard-boiled eggs still in the shell. The hard-boiled eggs in the shell will keep longer before you take the shells off. So I did that. Whole avocados. And then, of course, like the non-perishable stuff that you can do, like the meat sticks and the biltong. and my supplements. I always keep protein powder with me, packets, or I'll dump some in a baggie. I've gone through TSA and gotten checked many times, so now in my carry-on, I only bring what I need for that day, but then I'll pack the rest of the powdered stuff so I don't get stopped. FYI, coffee in your carry-on, opened coffee, sometimes even closed coffee, will get checked also a lot of the time. Tuna packets are great for traveling. Pack those in your check bag if they have like water, if they're watery. But if they're dry, you can put them in your carry-on. All right, and then let's see. I'm gonna go back to the dairy, Sadie. Don't worry. Yep, Sadie's bringing veggie tray and meat tray for the family barbecue. Love it. And making myself a ribeye. Love it. Vital Farms eggs. Yum. Yes, I brought my equipped protein flying. I brought like everything when I flew. We've been doing a lot of travel this year. So I brought, and I put everything in alternate baggies. Unless my protein's almost out, like Equip comes in bags, so I can just like roll the bag up and it'll get really small. But usually I'll put it in separate baggies, like Ziploc quart bags or Ziploc sandwich bags or gallon bags. And I'll put with a Sharpie what it is in case they do check it. But yeah, sometimes they brought the solution out and everything and did like a whole chem thing in the airport with my powders. So I would definitely say put the powders in your checked bag. I double bag them, so I'll put them in baggies, and then I put all the baggies in a big gallon bag so it doesn't, you know, in case it gets punctured or something. But I bring MCT powder when I'm traveling, so I don't have to like go get the oil at a location, and I'm very hesitant to travel with oils in case something spills. I use apple cider vinegar in my water at home, so whenever I can, I go and buy a bottle, a small bottle, if I can find a small bottle of apple cider vinegar at the new location. One of the greatest places for this, for those going to KetoCon, they have the headquarters of Whole Foods, and they have like pour your own. I could go pour my own apple cider vinegar and bring it to the hotel with me, or the Airbnb. For those that are eating nuts and seeds, they have the whole nuts and seeds section. You can get your own. That's another thing I used to do when I was more keto and less carnivore. I always had pumpkin seeds. That was my jam, was raw pumpkin seeds, certain nuts, macadamias, or almonds I can handle not eating a lot of. Pecans were more difficult. I would go crazy on the pecans, so I didn't buy as many of those, but I do love pecans. Or I would do walnuts, which were easier not to overeat for me. So if you're a person who has certain snacks that you overeat, don't use those snacks as your travel snacks, because you'll eat them all on the plane before you even get there, and then you won't even have any for the rest of the time. So I had to figure out like what I could eat in moderation, and then bring those with me. Meat sticks are that way. I'm not going to overeat those. Pumpkin seeds or pepitas used to be that way for me. She just says, stay with my best friend, and she was stressed trying to figure out how to accommodate me. I explained to her, just meat. It doesn't have to be complicated. She ended up making me oxtails. Yum. Exactly. And we'll get to that in just a second. I'm not going to spend too much more time on the little bit more practical stuff, and then we'll get into the people stuff. So, okay, having alternatives on you at all times. Knowing what alternatives work for you and what alternatives are not a good idea. Staying hydrated, my friends. Oh my gosh, this is huge for avoiding temptation and cravings and hunger and false hunger in particular. I always have electrolyte water on me. I usually have my big jug. I pour the big jug into the smaller things, but I always have it on me everywhere I go. Do not travel without something to stay hydrated all the time. For traveling, I will pack the shaker bottles without anything in them, and I will bring my big jug with me, empty into the airport until I get through TSA. I fill it immediately. It's the first thing I do when I get through security. Fill it up at the fill station, pour my element or my Relight or both into it. That's what I have for the whole day. And then I can also keep tabs on how much I'm consuming as well to make sure I'm consuming enough water and electrolytes. Always bring them to parties with me, always bring them everywhere I go. I never feel weird about carrying my water with me. And on that note of staying hydrated, let's talk about alcohol. For those of you who recognize that alcohol is a gateway drug and it will open the way to inhibitions, releasing inhibitions, and now you're going to get into the sugar and the whatever else. For you, it may be I cannot have a drink when I go out. Drinks are off the table. It's a non-negotiable for me. If others of you find that the occasional drink, you can handle that and you're not going to go off the rails, and it's important to you to have that in your life, once again, I would go back to the, why is this important to me? What meaning am I placing on the alcohol? Because to be quite frank, even more so than sugar, alcohol is a poison to the body and it's doing absolutely nothing for you. So if anything, the best challenge you can take in life is removing alcohol along with the sugar and just saying this has no place in my life. But if you're the person who wants that occasional drink, you have to know yourself and know your limits. Can you have one and not go off the rails? If the answer really is no, then there has to be a no sip. It has to be a I'm not allowing myself one sip of this because I already know what it's going to do to me. So that gets into our very last practical tip, and that is knowing your limits, setting your own boundaries and allowances in advance. If you're going to a place where, let's say it's a rare kind of a thing, it's a once a year thing, that like this is usually more of a thing around the holidays, Christmas, New Year's, things of that nature where you're going to see extended family you don't see all the time, and you have this one aunt or grandmother who makes this one particular thing and they only do it once a year and you don't go every year and it's been 5 years since you've seen them. That is a kind of situation where I would say, ask yourself, is it worth it for me to just have one piece of that thing? Because if I don't have it, I'm going to be thinking about it for the next 5 years, or maybe my grandmother is aging and this might be the last time I ever eat her sweet potato pie. Who knows what it is? But cases like that where I would say, yes, know yourself and know whether or not it's going to send you into oblivion and whether it's worth it for you or not. But also, is this rare? This used to be my cheat rules back when I was like, okay, I have kind of parameters around my cheats. These days I don't so much anymore. But it had to be rare. It had to be unique. Meaning rare, like this isn't going to happen every day. This isn't a regular thing. I can't, I can't go and get that at the grocery store. It's not a random donut. I see, Mashida mentioned the Krispy Kreme Hot Light. The fact is, like, the Krispy Kreme Hot Light sign, how many times are you going to pass by that, like, in a year? Probably a ton. It's not that special when we start to take that novelty out, because we've created that novelty, right? We know how good it tastes. We've created this novelty of how special that is. But the fact is, you could pass by there and see that every day if you wanted to. It's not that novel. So rare, not happening all the time, unique, like it's not the typical flavor combination you're going to find everywhere, or it's this specialty pastry you're not going to get every day. Rare, unique, it had to be free. I wasn't going to pay for it. I wasn't going to go spend my money on this cheat, because that gets into a territory where I could start doing that on a pretty regular basis. I had like 2 others. It had to be worth it to me. So like, let's say your grandmother makes this peach cobbler and you never cared about peach cobbler. It's never the thing you would ever care about. Then just because your grandmother made it doesn't make it any more special. I'm that way with most fruit desserts. I don't care about a fruit dessert. I can go without that. But if it was like this, I don't know, one of my favorite flavors in the world, and it was it hit all the other things too. Free, unique, rare, special, and it's my favorite flavors, then, okay, maybe I'll be thinking about this for the next year if I don't try it. So it'd be better for me to just try it and move on. I did that in Austin, not Austin, where were we? In Salt Lake, when we went out to the salt mines at Redmond's, and there were these cobblers. Now, I will say I typically don't care about a cobbler, but they had a peach cobbler and an apple cobbler. It had like this Heath bar topping. Hope this is not triggering to anyone. If it is, feel free to turn away. Come back and watch the rest of the recording. So trigger warning. Not something I would normally care about, but the Heath bar thing made it like, ooh, this made it special. And it had these marshmallows, and I love mini marshmallows. And I was like, this is not something I have had in 5 months. Well, that particular thing I had never had in my life. And my entire life, I've never had anything like that. So talk about rare and unique and special. And a flavor that I really like. And I was like, this is not going to happen again. This was a catered event. It was like this thing out. It was a really cool experience. I waited until the very end of the event. I took a tiny little plastic spoon and had a little plastic spoon bite of each of them. I was like, look, is this going to kick me out of ketosis? Yes. Is this going to increase my blood sugar? Yes. Is this going to, I also had to be very, very mindful of what was getting ready to happen and be very present in the moment and say, I'm going to start getting cravings from this. I know what's going to happen. So I thought about all of that in advance. I had it at the very end of the event. I was like, that way, if I'm wanting to go back for more, I can't, because we were getting on buses and we were driving 2 hours away. So that's all, some of the practical stuff along with some of the mindset stuff. Knowing yourself, knowing your limits and boundaries. What do you need to put in place to make this successful? So I was able to walk away from that and not get into more of that. Okay, so that's it for pretty much the practical stuff. Okay. Oh, interesting. Sadie says, when traveling out west, I put sticks of grass-fed butter in my LMNT bottle and it never gets checked and it doesn't melt. My hubs uses that only for his veggies and coffee. Interesting. I would be so afraid that it would melt, but pretty cool that it doesn't melt. I mean, if it does, at the end of the day, I suppose it'll just get solid again. You can put it in the fridge wherever you're staying. That is interesting. I do have some olive oil packets, but like I said, I don't like to travel with oils. But here's another little, oh yeah, one more practical tip for travels. Your coconut oil packets, olive oil packets, if you want to travel with MCT packets, or like the butter and ghee, or the ghee and coconut oil, they have all kinds of different packets you can buy. Put them in the freezer or the fridge before you leave so they get solidified fully. And usually, unless it's really, really hot in the cargo or something, they can still get there solid. Or at least they'll stay solid long enough that you can pack them in your checked bag and bring them with you that way. All right, now let's get into the people management piece. All right, handling food pushers. Number one, this is going to go back to your mindset. So, as we said before, here's the deal. At the end of the day, we put too much emphasis on what other people are thinking about us, when the reality is, most of the time they're not thinking about you and what you're doing. If you didn't say anything ever to anyone about your diet, they probably wouldn't even notice. You could go to a restaurant with friends. If they didn't know what you were doing already, you could make your order without anybody saying anything. It is first and foremost about the energy and the attitude that you have about your chosen way of eating, once again. So if you make it a big deal, it's going to be a big deal to everyone else. If you are drawing attention to it, other people will draw attention to you and how you're eating. If you're grumbling and complaining about being on the diet or about what you can't eat, you're placing the emphasis on that. You're teaching other people that this way of eating and living is making you sad and making you grumpy and making you upset. And this is a big thing in your marriages too. If anybody has like spouses that are not supportive of your way of eating, if you show them that the way that you're choosing to eat makes you a better person, makes you happier, you're in a better mood, you're in the mood more often, you're feeling more comfortable and confident in your body, you're kinder and more generous for them, they are going to be all on board with it. But when they see that you become a grouchy person because of the way that you're eating, they're going to associate those things, and they're always going to be trying to get you off your diet. So first things first, if you are bothered by the way people are treating you about your food choices, check yourself. What am I training them and teaching them to believe about my diet? Okay. Secondly, check your actions. How are you acting around them? How are you behaving around them? When I first started this way of eating, probably nobody really noticed at first. When they did start noticing, maybe I would order differently at a restaurant or something, I got questions. And this was before I even knew what I was doing. I was just trying removing things to see how I felt. And a friend asked me if I was paleo, and I didn't know what that was. And that's really what sent me down the rabbit hole of even learning about this lifestyle. Because of the way I ordered at a restaurant, they just asked, "Are you paleo?" I was like, "What's that?" And then I did my own research, and then I did go paleo, and then it went from there. So it didn't have to mean anything about me. I didn't place any meaning on what her asking me if I'm paleo, that doesn't have to be offensive to me. When people ask you, why are you doing what you're doing, it doesn't have to be an offensive thing. You get to receive that as a compliment. You get to receive that however you want to receive that. So when people ask me now questions or challenge me on the way that I'm eating, I see it as a compliment. I see it as I'm leading the way. I'm setting the tone. I'm doing something that everybody else isn't doing. That makes me special. It doesn't make me weird. It doesn't make me different. It does make me different, but being different is good. So once again, it's what are we placing the meaning on this? If we are internalizing things that people say to us in a negative way, we are choosing to make it negative. We get to make it positive. Okay, now, when it comes to food pushers, you really have to ask yourself, what have I shown them by my actions in the past? If every time you went to your mom's house or your grandmother's house, you ate that thing, and now you're not eating it, and you don't understand why she doesn't just know that you're not eating that and why she can't be more supportive. She's always seen you eat it. Don't put that on her. It's not on her. That's on you. Same thing with any of your friends, family members. If they've always seen you eating the sugar, eating the dessert, eating the whatever, the chips, whatever the temptation is, before you were on your diet, and now you're on your new way of life, and they're not familiar with that yet, they just have to get familiar with that. You can talk to them in advance and explain to them if you feel that they will be receptive to that, or you don't have to. You can just go and make your decisions and not make it a big deal, not make it the subject of conversation. Most of the time, they won't even notice. If they do and they're pushing, just all you have to say, you don't even have to explain why you're doing it. You can just say, you know what? No, thank you. No, thank you. It goes a long way. If they are one of those people, because many of us have those women in our lives, tend to be our mothers, grandmothers, aunts, who derive their value from you eating their food. Unfortunately, that's a generational curse. You can take it, put it on your plate, not eat it, at the end of the event, throw it away. Take it, go put it down somewhere, they probably won't even notice. If they're standing there waiting for you to eat it, watching you, say, you know what, I'm really full right now, I'm gonna give myself 10 minutes, I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna put it to the side, I'm gonna have it in a little bit. If you feel like doing that. If you want to make it a thing, by all means make it a thing, but be prepared for what you're opening up. Also, some other clients of mine have said, for medical reasons, I can't have that right now, or I'm not eating that right now. I'm not eating that right now, or I'm not eating that, or just no thank you. But I like the I'm not rather than the I can't, because it's, once again, it's training your own brain how to see these things. There's nothing that you can't do. We are all adults. If you're able-bodied, you can feed yourself with whatever you want. It's a choice. I'm choosing not to. I'm not eating that. I don't eat that. I love the I don't eat that. Anybody have any specifics that they deal with people that you would like me to address? The biggest thing is that the longer you are consistent with your choices, with your lifestyle that you've chosen, and that you show people that you're happy with it, the less they are going to push. If you give in to the temptation every time, they know that if they push hard enough, you're going to eat it. So the best way that you can combat that, just like I said with the cravings, the only way to eliminate cravings altogether is to stop feeding the craving. The only way to stop food pressures long term is to stop giving in. Fight them long enough. I don't even like to say fight. It's just more, this is not what I do. It's a non-negotiable. The longer you stick to your guns and you show them that you're consistent, the less they will push. It's like bullies, right? Better not to push back. It's just to say, I don't do that. I don't do that. And if you allow them to get you riled up emotionally and get into a fight about it, you've given in another way. Doesn't have to mean anything. Doesn't have to mean anything. You get to assign the meaning to it. So if you're getting emotional when they push food, take a step back in your own time, sit down, explore what's coming up for you and why it's such a hot button for you. Do some journaling, do some meditation. Recognize that there's something deeper going on there. It has nothing to do with them and it has nothing to do with the food and it has everything to do with you. So do a little soul searching. I want to go back to the dairy because I know Sadie had some specifics there. All right. I love cottage cheese, block cheese, yogurt, heavy cream, and they all hate me unless I make the 2KK yogurt myself or I noticed eating raw once in a while. Bottom line is it sticks to me and stalls me. Also the struggles. Okay, so it sounds like physically, like, do you have symptoms from dairy? Does it cause physical issues for you? Gut problems, skin? Like, I know for me, dairy 100% every single time, and it usually only takes like 1 or 2 servings in a day or two. Like, if I do it for a couple of days, 3 days in a row, forget it. I can get away with the occasional Too Good yogurt like once a month. But if I'm doing like consistently dairy a few days, like if I do keto chow, literally it just takes a keto chow, milk, protein, concentrate, a day or two of keto chow and 1 serving, and I am completely congested. Lymph nodes are swollen, ears are inflamed. I start getting the sinus congestion. And if I keep going, it'll be a full-blown sinus infection. So the mucus production is real with dairy. I feel the inflammation in my body, my legs, and like the certain parts that are trying to heal after training. I'll feel much more inflamed for longer, so my recovery from workouts gets worse. And then sometimes I'll feel gut issues. I don't so much feel those as much anymore. It's more of a congestion issue, an inflammation issue. But some people have serious, bowel changes or stomach problems. I also break out. I get hormonal acne from dairy. So when I reflect on those things, it's just not worth it to me. So Sadie, what is it for you with the dairy? Is it just that? Is it a weight loss stall or is it other stuff? Because at the end of the day, when it comes to dairy with weight loss stalls, there's a couple of things happening. One is they are typically high fat, calorically dense. They are hyperpalatable. So they are one of the real food items that is more hyperpalatable than most. Nuts and cheese are the 2 biggest. Hyperpalatable, difficult to stop, easy to overeat. which then is going to jack your calories, your fuel calories up, your fat calories. Some of them do have some carbs as well, so that can jack up your carbs and your fat. The lactose, if they do have that in them, can affect people negatively. The inflammation can also cause fat loss stalls as well. So, or just scale stalls, because scale weight is impacted majorly by inflammation. But if you're not recovering well from training, not sleeping well, sleeping is when you recover and you're inflamed. Inflammation is the root cause of all disease, of all dis-ease in the body. So anything inflammatory, and dairy is a big one, will set you back. Keto Chow does that to me, and I use beef gelatin with it. It helps my gut and everything else. You're saying the beef gelatin helps your gut? Gelatin is fantastic for gut health. Collagen, gelatin, glutamine, all great for gut health. Yeah, so Karen mentions too with the people aspect that you can turn it into an occasion where you can educate them about nutrient information and how it affects the body. Yes, you certainly can if they are open to it. I did a lot of that in my early days, and I stopped offering information unless people were interested and asking. So these days I don't offer the information unless it is solicited, because it can turn into a thing. But I get a lot more solicitation nowadays. So really the best way to advocate for this lifestyle is to be your own success story. And you can only do that the longer you're consistent. Okay, so we're wrapping up. It's over an hour, but I want to read a couple last comments on here. Yep, Sadie has lots of tips for travel. Oh, ask about equip because it's expensive and you don't want to lose it to TSA. Yes, I don't want to lose any of my supplements to TSA. Yeah, I've never had it taken. They usually just test it. And you do get skin and gut issues from dairy, yeah. So yeah, I would really reflect on that. Reflect on how you feel when you eat it, and really what comes across your mind when you're considering, do you buy it on a regular basis? Because the other thing too is like, don't keep it around. That way, if you're having a craving, the occasional craving for it, you actually have to go to the grocery store to get it, and you're much less likely to do it. So what tends to happen when you find yourself going for the dairy? Like, what's happening in your mind? Do a little exploring there. All right, I think that's all we have for today. So if anybody has any more questions about how to deal with temptations and social events and food pushers and things of that nature, holler at me in the group, drop a comment, drop a situation if you want. And tell me in the group. I'm going to post an engagement question after I get off of here for today, to just get some conversation going around what are you guys doing for the holiday weekend, what's coming up over the weekend, what are you planning for your food, and let's just share some of what we're doing to be successful over this long weekend. I hope you all enjoy your long weekend. Have a blast with your friends and family, or with yourself if you want to have some me time. And yeah, more power to you. Thanks for joining me for the live, and I will see you in the group. Happy holiday!